Okay, so today we're going to be drawing four like pretty basic geometric figures, okay? So the first one we have up here is a cylinder. Then we're going to do a cone. Then we're going to do a pyramid. And then we're going to do like a curved cylinder, all right? So the idea behind these basic geometric figures that we've been working on is that if you can learn how to draw these basic geometric figures, you can combine them, you can change them a little bit to draw much more complex things. That's the idea. We want to have an understanding of how to structure these basic figures and also how the light's going to interact with them so that we can do more complicated things later on. All right? So here's what we're going to do to start. We're going to divide our paper into four boxes, just like this, like a window. We're going to start with the cylinder. So I've actually got a cylinder right here. Okay. So the cylinder has, well, this one's open at the end, but it has a circular bottom, a circular top, and kind of a curved plane for the sides, right? So we want to start off by drawing the top of it. But what we're going to do is we've got a circle. So this is a circle, right? But we don't want to draw it foreshortened. So foreshortened, the idea is that we're looking at it from the side. So you can see as I start to turn this roll of tape, the circle starts to get like more squished and more of an oval shape. So that's called foreshortening. So we did the same thing when we did the boxes. We drew sort of a foreshortened square for the base or the top. So same sort of idea here. So we're just going to start with a foreshortened circle right here. Now I'm going to draw the sides. For the sides, I'm just going to come straight down. And then I'm going to draw another foreshortened circle for the bottom. So I'm going to kind of erase most of that bottom here in just a second, but let me explain why I'm doing that. So if I have a cylinder here, if the cylinder is at eye level, I'm not going to be able to see the bottom or the top. So you can see up there with the tape, I can only see the front of the tape. When it moves up, right, I'm going to be able to see the bottom. So you can see the bottom of the tape roll now. Okay. When it moves down, I'll be able to see the top. There's not going to be a point in time when I'm able to see the top, the bottom, and the side. Okay. So right now I can see the top and the bottom and the side, but that's not going to typically be the case. Now, if I had a clear cylinder, if I was drawing like a glass maybe, I'd be able to see it. But in most situations, I'm only going to be able to see either the top or the bottom. And sometimes I won't be able to see either. I'll only be able to see the side. So I'm going to draw this as if my point of view is up above the cylinder. So I will make it so I can't see the bottom. And usually my point of view is going to be up above whatever I'm drawing. If it's like sitting on the ground or on the floor, right? Unless it's flying, I'm probably not going to be able to see the bottom. So there I sketched out my plan for it. I sketched out the basic component parts. And now I'm just drawing in the contour lines for it. Right? And now I'm going to shade it. So I'm going to make the light coming from above my left shoulder. So here's my sundial. Here's my shadow. So the shading for my cylinder is going to be pretty similar to when we were doing the spheres. I want to have a gradient. So I'm just going to put a little bit of shading on the top. You could even leave that totally white. It's going to be getting a lot of light from that light source. And then the darkest part is going to be over here because it's farthest away from where the light's hitting. So I'm going to darken that. So I want to have a gradient where this shifts from this dark to the highlight, which is going to be about here. Okay? And the gradient, again, we talked about this with spheres, means that I want to have a subtle shift from dark to light. So I can kind of use cross contour strokes, meaning that I curve them a little bit to get the kind of curve of the cylinder here. Probably want to have a little bit of darkness here on the other side of the highlight. I just want to have a gradual transition. So a good thing to work on while you're waiting for me to do the next figure would be to make this transition as soft and gradual as possible. And you can do that by laying in more graphite as needed. So if I want to make this darker, I can go in and I can darken it more and more. I can just keep laying graphite on top. You can also bring in an eraser, soften that up. You can also kind of smear it, smudge it a little bit. But just try to get that transition as soft as possible. If you have like a pretty well drawn out cylinder, you need to figure out what the next thing to improve is. That's probably a good next step. So this is what's called an attached shadow. So the shadow that's on our figure we're drawing, where the light's not hitting it as much, is called an attached shadow. And the other shadow that we have is a cast shadow. So the cast shadow is going to come out at the same angle as our sundial here. So it's going to be at kind of this angle here, right? And it's going to come from this corner here, kind of along that angle, and then from this corner here along that angle. So that's going to be our cast shadow. You can darken that in. So there's our cast shadow. Alright, so try to get that. Try to get your shading as soft and your gradient as smooth as possible. Okay, so for our next figure here, we're going to do something really similar. Should be an easy transition. We're going to do a cone. Okay? So we're going to start the cone again with a foreshortened circle. We're not going to see the bottom, but I'm going to draw it to start off with just for the planning. So don't draw it too dark. Now, what I want to do to draw my cone is I want to go straight up from the center of this circle. So I can kind of visualize that, or I can draw it if I want to. I want to go straight up from there. And now I need to decide how high I want the top of the cone to be. So I'm going to put it about here. And then all I have to do is connect this furthest left point on the circle to the top of the cone. And then the point on the right to the top of the cone as well. Right? So my initial sketch is really light, right? So that's a good thing to practice, trying to draw as light as possible. You only have to draw dark enough so that you can see where your plans are. And then after I've got that plan done, I can come in. If I want a nice bold contour line, I can add that in. Conversely, if I want to do something that's a little less dependent on those contour lines, like we worked on with the spheres last week, I can also do that. I can just start shading. So for this one, we're going to do something a little weird with the shading. We're going to make it coming from kind of over that direction. So it's like in front of me to my left. And so this whole form is going to be in the shadow. So I want to look at where my, look at the angle on my cast shadow here. My cast shadow is going to be kind of running at this angle from the center. So the darkest part of it's basically going to go from here, the center of the cast shadow, up to the top. So that's going to be like the darkest part of my shadow. And again, since this is a curved surface, I'm going to have a gradient for the shading. So I can kind of shade using my cross contours. I want to apply a lot of force in the center of that shadow, and then just sort of soften it up as I work my way out. So the whole back of this figure is probably going to be shaded. And then I can just kind of adjust the gradient so that I get a smooth transition. And if I decide I need to soften it up, I can kind of erase lightly. So that's another good skill to work on, is learning how to erase lightly. All right. I think when we erase most of the time, we're trying to totally eradicate the marks we made, right? Because we made a mistake. But when we're drawing, sometimes it's really useful to just kind of erase lightly, just to lighten something up slightly. And then when we want to draw in our cast shadow, we're going to come from the edges here, just like when we were drawing the top of the cone, towards where the top of the cone is going to be. So probably something like this. Maybe went too steep there. Again, this shadow here that's on the shape is the attached shadow, and this one's the cast shadow. Right. Okay, so next one. So the next one we're going to do is going to be a pyramid. So this is going to be really similar to the cone in a lot of ways. We're just going to have a square base instead of the circular base, right? So we're going to start it off the same way we did with the cubes. So we're drawing a foreshortened square. So we'll start with 2 dots, one to the left, one to the right, and then one up above and one up below. I'm going to actually change these so they're on a little bit of an angle this time. But basically they should be kind of lined up like this, maybe here. Okay? So 1 dot, 2 dot, 3 dots, 4 dots. And then we're going to connect these and these. And we've got kind of a rhombus shape, all right? Again, that's going to be our foreshortened square. So with the dots connected like this, we can actually find the center of the square. That'll be right here. And we can go straight up from there to figure out where the top of our pyramid is going to be. If I can go straight up, that seems pretty good. Now, again, I can pick how tall I want my pyramid to be, and then I'm going to connect this to here. So the left corner to the top, the right corner to the top, and I'll connect the front corner to the top. And after I've kind of sketched that all in, I can come in, I can add my contour lines. Now I can erase that stuff that's behind. So I don't really need all that stuff. It was just sort of planning. We'll keep the shading pretty simple for this one. I'm just going to have it coming from over my right shoulder here. Okay. So I'll leave this side of the pyramid light, and then I can shade this side. And since it's a flat surface this time, we're just going to have smooth, flat shading, right? So no gradation, no change. This whole side is going to all be the same value, the same tone. And then my cast shadow will kind of extend from the center here, maybe to about here. I'll connect this corner and this corner here. And there's the cast shadow for my pyramid. All right. Horizon lines. Now we're going to do our last one. So the last one is like kind of a curved cylinder. All right. So we're just going to draw one end here. And we can draw the other end wherever we want. It doesn't really matter, but I'm going to draw it like right here. And this is like if you need to draw like a pipe or a tube or a hose or something like that. A piece of macaroni. So I'm going to connect this. It's the same idea as here, except instead of going straight down, it's going to kind of curve around. And I'll connect it here. So this is actually going to overlap right here. So the tricky part of this one is that I want to keep it the same thickness all the way through. So I really want to keep these lines like equal distance apart. That's kind of the tricky part, but that's all right. We got it. All right, so there we go. And then I can decide if I want to be able to see that end. If I don't want to be able to see that end, I can erase it. Doesn't really matter. I can just kind of think about whether it makes sense for me to see it or not. I feel like it doesn't here, so I kind of erased it. Now I can draw in my contour lines. This one's also a lot trickier to shade, so just kind of do your best on this. So we'll kind of have a shadow on this side of it. Or also, this overlapping piece might also make a cast shadow onto itself. So something kind of like this, maybe. And again, this is going to have a gradation because it's a curved surface, right? And then maybe we'll have a cast shadow back here somewhere. Something like that. So that's a little challenging, but just try to figure it out the best that you can. Okay.